Good morning, everybody. I was hoping that there would be a picture here that was taken in Kenya. It shows, is it there? Oh, sorry, over there. These ladies, they're looking at their smartphone. It's on election day, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting very many Kenyans on and around election day because I have the honor of leading the EU's election observation mission to Kenya. And very often, I got the question, is the international community applying the same standards to how they look at Kenya, or does the world think that some halfway democracy is good enough for Africa? And of course, the resounding answer is no. Halfway democracy is not good enough for anyone. And the same can be said for access to the internet. Halfway is not enough. Some may say, okay, well, we're almost halfway there. Roughly half of the world's population is now online. But if we look more closely at those figures, of course, there's a huge inequality between the developing and the developed world. In Latin America, only 1 in 10 of the poorest people has access to the internet. Or in the Central African Republic, the cost of 1 month of internet access is the same as a year and a half of income per capita for the poor people. So half is not enough. Now, some may say there are solutions, things are evolving fast. You may have heard about initiatives that a company like Facebook took to bring free basics, access to a subset of the websites available to those in poor countries. And I think actually that too, that halfway kind of access only to a limited set of commercial sites is not good enough. People have compared it to giving candy to the hungry, even if they actually need nutritious food. But beyond the question of infrastructure, broadband, access to the internet to people all over the world, which I do think is important, the one thing I would like you to take away today is the vital importance of matching the rollout of broadband, trying to reap the digital dividend, but matching it with applying the rule of law online. Of course, access to information is a vital human right, and it's very important, but there are many, many more laws that need to be in place in order for people to benefit from online access, but also to be safe after doing so. Let me give you a few examples. In India, a decades-old law is used to shut off the internet when it is convenient for authorities. And if there's any Egyptians in the room, they know what it's like to experience a national-wide kill switch, shutting off all internet and mobile services in the country in the name of national security or state of emergency. The question is whether there's even a law behind such actions. And in countries like Pakistan or Kenya, going back to the young women in the picture, there are no data protection laws. So imagine, these women, they're voting perhaps for the first time. What happens to their voter data? What happens to their personal data? What happens to the data in their phones, their devices, the metadata that gets assembled as a result of them surfing the internet? There is no data protection law, but for example, there's also no campaign financing law. So without these legal foundations, it's very hard to then make sure that rights are guaranteed or to even assess whether there is compliance with very basic rights. Now, we can name a number of examples in developing countries, but I would also like to look at ourselves, us in the European Union, and what we must do better. The EU is, of course, one of the key donors when it comes to development aid, and certainly IT, the rollout of broadband, improving digital skills and a digital economy are among the top priorities. But let us also connect the dots ourselves. In Europe, we know a standard for what is called Lawful intercept. And what that means is that every telecoms network, every telecoms device that is produced on the European market must have a means for law enforcement authorities to access these networks and devices. It is required by law, the so-called Lawful intercept standards. But you can already tell from the name that this presumes that the rule of law applies. Because how do you know whether an intercept is lawful if the rule of law does not apply? Still, the export of networks, mobile phones, and other devices is done to places anywhere in the world where we know the rule of law does not provide the safeguards for people. And so putting these lawful intercept devices or networks in places where the rule of law does not exist immediately leads them to facilitate lawless interception. And I think that is a big problem. Similarly, in the EU, but also the United States and other democracies of this world, the production of ready-made surveillance technology is actually booming. Devices that are used for hacking, tracking, tracing, following, breaking into the devices of journalists, human rights defenders, critical students, and opposition figures in countries all over the world is currently facilitated by these commercially available surveillance tools. These tools are getting faster, cheaper, and smaller every day, and the market so far is largely unregulated. Now, we've all seen during the Arab uprisings what the use of these kinds of devices means in the hands of authoritarian states. And so in the European Parliament, I'm working on trying to limit this, what I think, toxic market, and to make sure that we in Europe take our responsibility and practice what we preach. So, there's a lot that we can do. And I would like to echo the words that one of the previous speakers here, Nana Nwakema, said. She's with the Web Foundation, and she always has this very powerful chant where she calls on people to follow her when she says, we need all of the people, all of the internet, all of the time. And I think that's absolutely right. But if I can humbly ask to add one demand to that, we don't only need all of the people on all of the internet all of the time, but we also need all their human rights to be protected. Thank you.